Hello and welcome to the Book Bunch. My name is Sam. It is so great to have you guys here, especially for this fantasy recommendations video because there is a new all-time favorite and I've got to say, Whitney, you are my new best friend. Thank you for recommending this book to me. But yes, we're going to get right into it. I am going to save the good news till a little bit later on because there was one book that I read out of these 4 books that I'm going to share with you that was a DNF because it is not a recommendation. So I'm going to start with that, and that is The Corpse Rat King. And it wasn't overly bad, like cleanliness wise. Like there was some crude language and it was a little bit crude because it is a thief story, and we follow this kind of corrupt thief guy, but I mostly just got really bored. Like the concept of this story is very cool and the first little section did captivate me, and then I very quickly lost interest when we were just following the main character around. So I'll explain. We follow this guy named Marius, and he is a person that goes around and makes his living by basically following around these armies to their various battlefields, and then once the battle is over, he goes and he loots the corpses of their riches before anyone notices. And he is, you like start with him on a battlefield. He's currently looting corpses, and he is about to get caught by some soldiers that are like monitoring the area. And so he doesn't get caught. He pretends to be one of the fallen, and in doing so he lies next to the king who has been killed in this battle, and he has looted all of the stuff from the king, like his crown and stuff. And he goes to get up, but before he can get up, one of the dead grabs hold of him and says, "You're coming with me," and brings him into the underworld because he thinks he's the king. And they are like, the dead are looking for a new king because they believe that if they get a new king that they will be looked well upon by God, because like kings are typically put in rule by God appointing them. And so they want that favor from God, and so they're like, if we get a king, he'll be God appointed and then we won't be left to rot, basically. And he's like, whoa, 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 you've got the wrong guy. I'm not the king. I was just looting his corpse, kind of thing. And as like punishment for pretending to be the king and stealing all the king's stuff, they send him back to the overworld without his heartbeat because they're holding his heartbeat as ransom, and he has to go get them the king and bring him back. However, Marius does not want to participate, and it kind of reminds me of Jonah, even though I don't think that the person who wrote this is a Christian. But yeah, he's like, I'm not doing what you say, like I don't care. And he like, you basically from then on follow him trying to avoid this responsibility, and he doesn't even care that he doesn't have a heartbeat, and all these things keep going wrong for him, but he is adamant that he's not going to go ahead with the mission he's been given. And like I said, sounds super interesting. The first bit where he was like conversing with the dead and everything, that was really interesting, but then we ended up just following him around doing stuff, which was essentially a waste of time because you know he's going to have to go get the king anyway. And I got very quickly bored from it. I got like just less than a third of the way through, I think, and because I got 109 pages in, I think it's like a 300 something page book, and I just ended up getting bored. Plus, yeah, it was a little bit crude in places, like with a bit of swearing and like some comments that are made in passing. So yes, that is The Corpse Rat King. Don't recommend it, but getting into books I do recommend. So we'll start off with a 5-star read, which for me was Calor. I love this book. Like, it was so good. I only got it on an ebook, and I know you guys are like, Sam, what has gone into you, ebooks? I know, and I'm going to share 2 with you today, and that is crazy because I haven't read ebooks since I was like 14 or 15, and I decided to get my hands on a couple of ebooks because I knew I wasn't going to be able to get the physical copies anytime soon, and I just really wanted to read them, and I figured if I really liked them I could get the physical copies later. So I took the plunge to see if I could get into ebooks, and they're not as good. They aren't. They're just not as good as paperback. Sorry, e-back lovers. But I do like them enough that I will continue to get them. So there's that new revelation. But yes, Calor, super, super good. I really, really liked it. I'm going to leave it up here so you guys can see all the details of the author and everything. But this book, I cannot wait for book 2 to come out at the end of this year. I'm hoping I can get on the author's street team, because I know that it's published by Enclave, and I've been asked to join the Enclave team, so that's super exciting. I'm really excited to bring all of that stuff with you, but I'm hoping I can specifically get on this author's street team for book 2 because I love this book. So what is it about? We follow this girl. She is a, how do you explain it? She is a slave, and she's been a slave her whole life since she was a little kid, from this one guy who is not very nice, and he uses her for her powers. So in this world, it's quite a bit different to how we see our world, but it also has some similarities in it as well. But yeah, so in this world, memories are like a currency basically, because people have forgotten what it was like to live normally and have normal things like strawberries and birdsong and greenery everywhere and stuff like that, because their world's kind of been ravaged quite a bit. And so they use memories as a currency, and they turn memories into these like little drinks that you can take, and then you get that memory somewhat temporarily and you get to experience that. It's very cool, and there's these different people in the world called alters, and they have these special like abilities. One of them's are called mems, and they are the ones that can deal with the memories and everything. And the main character, she is a mem, but she has been enslaved because of her ability, and this guy is basically exploiting her of her ability, and she's having a miserable time. And then one day a guy walks in from her past, and he is like a prominent figure. He is also an altar, and he says like, hey, I want to help you leave this place. In exchange, I need you to help me erase some of my memories, because he has a tragic past that he wants to forget about so he can move on with his life. And she's like, I can't do what you're asking. And he's like, I need you to help track down this thing so that you can, because there's this like artifact that will help enhance her powers. And she's like, no, I can't, because you want me to erase the memories of love and stuff in your life, because his family had perished and he couldn't live without them, kind of thing. It's not really a spoiler. You find out pretty early on, like within the first 100 pages. Anyway, and so she is like, I'm not going to help you like erase those loving memories from you, because I want to be loved, and everyone should want to be loved, and that is something you should hold on to, but I can help erase the pain if we go get this artifact. So they like run off, and they're on the run because like the slave owner guy is trying to hunt her down, and he is also being chased by this other prominent figure in society who just has this vendetta against him and wants to kill him. And so they're like on the run, and they collect all these people along the way to help with their cause. And it was just so good. I had such a good time reading it. The like writing was so well done that I didn't like, sometimes if the writing's not 100% and a book drags on a little bit, I typically will start skimming some pages if I really want to know how it ends, but I really can't handle all the extra details in there. Whereas this, I know when it's a good book and I really am enjoying it when I don't feel any need to skim, and I did not feel any need to skim throughout this whole one, which is good. I wanted to read every single detail about everything, all the descriptions, everything about the world. It was just so good and so perfect. So yes, that's Calor. That's all I can say without giving stuff away, but oh my goodness, you guys need to go read it. So please go pick that one up. And then there is Storm and Spire book 1. Storm and Spire, I think I'm saying that right. And this is currently a 3-book series. It is intended to be a 5-book series in total. The 4th book comes out in a couple of months, or maybe it has just come out. I can't quite remember. But yeah, you guys can check that out. It's only a couple of dollars each book on Kindle, or if you've got like the Kindle Unlimited, it's free. You can also get hard copies as far as I know. But I follow this author on Instagram, and she, like, I've watched her kind of journey, like, of her publishing her books and stuff like that. And they always sounded so interesting, so I thought I'd finally take the plunge and pick one up to, yeah, see what it's actually like. This is not sponsored or anything. None of this is sponsored. None of these authors have reached out to me. This is all just me gushing over good writers. But yes, I picked it up. It was a 4-star ultimately for me. And it's just because when she wrote this first book, she was kind of new to writing. And so it wasn't 100% there for me. But I have a feeling that as the books go on, I'm going to enjoy it more and more as her writing improves. But basically the story is about this guy, and I can't remember the name for what his role is, but he is basically the representative for the kingdom, like between the kingdom and their gods, and he is tasked to take their offering to this tower every like 3 months and get this little token and bring it back and like please the gods and all of that kind of thing. And he is also the last member of his royal family because his family was killed. And there is a rule where if you are the like person who has to do the sacrifices for the gods, you can't be a king at the same time. So the only way he can basically be in charge of his kingdom again is if he gets married, and then his wife would be in charge. But in the meantime, there's like this order of priests that are in charge of the kingdom, and all is going well until this guy encounters on his way home from his normal like sacrificial drop-off. He encounters this dragon who comes and talks to him, because in this world there's lots of different races and creatures and stuff like that, and they can all talk to each other. So there's like dwarves and stuff. And yeah, this dragon comes and talks to him and is like, hey, no one will listen to me, but I'm a researcher and I've discovered all of this crazy stuff that if people found out would turn our whole society on its head, and it's basically treasonous. But hear me out. And she basically goes on to explain that there is this book, or fragments of this book, from many years prior, that was thought to be lost, and she has found these fragments and read them, and they basically say that the gods they've been worshipping aren't real, and that instead there is a one true God that is real, and that he is like, it's like a prophecy that this guy who does the sacrifices is going to be able to unite everyone under this one true God, and that everything will kind of sort itself out, and anyone who doesn't join the one true God in at the end of this 1,000-year situation is going to be wiped out, because the kingdoms are going to try and destroy themselves because they're just so full of evil. And all these odd happenings have already started happening, like dwarves doing stuff, and like evil and illegal stuff that they haven't normally done in the past, and like all of this stuff is just slowly becoming unsettled. And he at first doesn't believe her, but then these kids, like after the dragons left, these kids from a totally different situation come and are like, hey, this is like what's happening. And he's like, what? These two, like me hearing about all of this in the one day by two totally separate sources, I've got to give some credit to it. So he kind of spends his time trying to figure out whether it's real or not, and deciding whether or not he's going to give his life to the one true God, and if he's going to try and rebel, I guess, against the system that is currently in place. Because again, he's not actually the king, and so he could still be executed for treason, even though they need him to do these sacrifices. And so he's like, maybe I should get a wife that's on my side, that can like stop me from being executed and all of these things. And yeah, it just goes a little bit crazy from there. But it was still good. Looking forward to the rest of the series. Don't know if I'll get into them straight away because I've just got so much to read, but they will definitely remain on my to be read list. And finally, we've got the Ember Blade, which is beautifully recommended to me by Whitney, and I'm very, very grateful. It's also being recommended to me by a couple of other people as well, who after Whitney had recommended it to me, they had said, oh, by the way, have you heard of this? And I was like, actually, I have, because Whitney told me about it. And I had picked up a copy, but I hadn't read it yet. I have read it now. And oh my goodness, it's definitely a 5 out of 5 star read. I am definitely going to pick up the next one. It is clean, I would say. The only content warning I would give you is there is suicide in there, so just be wary of that. And also, if you don't like stories where everybody dies, or almost everybody dies, don't read this, because no one is safe. No one is safe. And oh my goodness, you think everyone will be safe and they're not safe. It's like reading Miss Born Again, where just people just get killed off and you're like, what is happening? It is so good though. I am very keen to pick up the next book. I believe it might have released this month, or otherwise it's being released in the next couple of months, because it's a 2023 release for the second book. But man, I totally agree with the other YouTubers that are bringing this to attention, that this needs more hype and needs to be talked about more, because this is such a good fantasy. You guys need to get it. Highly recommend it. Didn't have any problems with it. Loved it. So good. So what is it about? We follow this boy Aaron and his friend named Cade, and they are like youth, teenagers, who are a little bit reckless, but they mostly just want to have fun. And one of them, he is like a pure for his land Ossian, and the other one is an Ossian noble, but because Ossia has been taken over by the Crodons, he is being raised to love the Crodons and the Crodons' beliefs, and so they butt heads about that kind of stuff, but ultimately they are still best friends. Until Aaron's father comes home, and like he's been away for a while, and Aaron's like, yay, dad's home. They have a good chat, but Aaron can tell something's off about his dad, because he's just more like, he's more vulnerable than he's ever seen him, and he can see weaknesses in his dad that he didn't know his dad had. And then like in the middle of the night, his family is like raided by the Croydon army, or like the soldiers or whatever, and his father is like killed on the spot, and Aaron is like appalled. And Aaron and his friend Cade are arrested, because Aaron is arrested just for being the son, and then Cade is arrested alongside Aaron because Cade tries to stop them from arresting Aaron. And Aaron and Cade are put in this war camp, and they are forced to like mine this really dangerous substance, with minimal food and no breaks and in shackles and stuff. And it's just a miserable time, and they're worked to actual death. Like, people die because they just are so exhausted, and then if they can't perform their job, they get beaten to death, and like all this horrible stuff happens. And I can tell you a fair bit about it because a lot of it's on the blurb, so don't read the blurb. But yeah, so they're in this war camp, and then all of this stuff kind of falls into place for Aaron, and he realizes that the Crotons are actually the enemy, and he wants to be a true-hearted patriot for the Ossians, like his friend Kate is. And so they devise a plan to escape the prison. And then things kind of go crazy from there, and they get caught up in this whole like adventure heist thing that happens, because the Ember Blade is this like ancient artifact that the Ossians used to have, and it's like been passed down from the royalty. And when the Ossians were taken over 30 years prior to this book being written, being set, the Ember Blade was stolen by the enemy. And so a bunch of Ossians are going to try and get the Ember Blade back. And Aaron and Cade find themselves like caught up in all of this crazy, and they are very scared for their lives because all of this stuff keeps happening, and they have to decide where their loyalties lie. And also Aaron has a lot of issues with some of the other people because the people who he is meant to be helping or are meant to be helping him is like the sworn enemy of his father, and he was warned to, like, if he ever saw him, to run and like stay as far away as possible. So it's crazy. It's a whole ride. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. It's not Christian or anything. It is secular. But it is very much so a story of good and evil. But yes, it's crazy good. I can't say much more without spoiling. I wish I could talk to someone about this in full though, because I'm like gushing as like how much I loved reading that. I read every moment of it with like just enraptured by it. So definitely go pick that one up if you haven't already and give it a read. Definitely let me know your thoughts because I want to talk about it. But yes, that is all of the fantasy recommendations and the ones I don't recommend for this video. I believe I will do one more fantasy video probably this Saturday, and then I will switch up genres a little bit for a couple of weeks. But yes, let me know what ones you guys have read out of any of these, if you've enjoyed any of these, if you want to get any of these, I'd love to know. And if there's any other recommendations you have for me, let me know in the comments below. Additionally, in the description box, I have my Instagram handle and my Goodreads handle if you would like to follow me on those platforms as well, because I do post stuff on there all the time as well. So yes, that's everything for today. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next video.